The chamber of the Galactic Council thrummed with tension. Walls of polished obsidian curved high overhead, their surface alive with refracted light from hovering drones. Delegates from 47 species filled the tiers, bodies glittering with scales, fur, or exoskeletal sheen. Their voices rolled like waves, rising, breaking, overlapping in a storm of outrage. At the center stood High Warlord HFY Arkan of the Dralathai Dominion, his forearms raised in commanding silence. The uproar stilled at once. "They are not warriors," HFY Arkan thundered, his mandibles flaring wide. "They are predators. They do not meet their foe in battle. They strike unseen, across gulfs of distance, slaying leaders before a single soldier bleeds. What honor exists in such butchery?" Murmurs of assent rippled across the tiers. A Kethari delegate, all quills and glassy eyes, hissed agreement. A Marican elder clicked its mandibles in applause. The verdict seemed near inevitable. Humanity, youngest of the interstellar races, was about to be cast into exile. High in the rafters, prone in shadow, Captain Elias Mercer listened. His breathing was steady, his cheek pressed against the stock of a matte black rifle. He did not aim at the warlord. He didn't need to, not tonight. Tonight, he was here only to hear the sentence. Through his scope, he studied the chrono display above the dais, watching the digits tick away. He had been invisible for hours, wrapped in adaptive mesh that bent light, heat, even scent. No alien eye saw him. None ever did until it was far too late. The warlord's speech rose in force. "Look at their record! On Draven 9, one human marksman slew an entire command echelon before our warriors crossed the field. On Koresh, a single bullet shattered negotiations that had stood for decades. They do not fight wars, they assassinate them. Is this who we welcome among us?" A chorus of voices echoed, "No." Elias felt no anger. Hatred was a luxury. Instead, he felt the same quiet detachment that had followed him since his first mission. He noted details, filing them away: the timing of applause, the posture of doubtful delegates, the warlord's inflection when invoking honor. He gathered patterns the way a hunter studies wind. The council adjourned in thunderous agreement. Tomorrow, the vote would decide humanity's fate. He slid backward into darkness, moving with soundless precision until he reached a maintenance shaft. The shuttle smelled of ozone and oil. Commander Albrecht, Coalition Intelligence Officer, sat across from Elias, arms folded, gaze sharp with unspoken disdain. His uniform was immaculate, his voice clipped. "You heard them," Albrecht said. "If HFY Arkan sways the undecided, humanity is finished in the Orion expanse." Elias adjusted the strap on his pack, silent. The commander leaned forward. "Your task is clear. Eliminate HFY Arkan before the vote. Without him, the Dominion loses its rallying point. The others will falter." Elias's voice was calm, almost quiet. "One shot, one life, thousands spared." Albrecht's lips curled. "You make it sound so clean." "It never is. Neither is war," Elias replied, eyes unreadable. The commander studied him, then slid a data chip across the table. "Insertion coordinates. Exfiltration plan is minimal. We can't risk exposure. You'll be on your own." As always, Elias thought, tucking the chip away. He stood, slinging his rifle with practiced ease. The weapon seemed archaic compared to the plasma carbines and particle casters of the galaxy, yet it was built for patience, silence, certainty. It was an extension of him. Later, in the solitude of his quarters aboard the transport, Elias sat cross-legged on the floor. The rifle lay across his knees. He ran a cloth along its barrel, his motions deliberate. The metal caught no gleam, every surface was dulled, every edge softened. A weapon meant not to be seen. His reflection wavered in the faint glass of the viewport. 34 years old, weathered eyes, close-cropped dark hair, a face that bore no marks of pride or rage, only endurance. He thought of the faces of the fallen, leaders who had collapsed mid-command, figures who had never seen their killer. Their eyes haunted him, but less than the thought of what would happen if he had missed. One shot saves thousands. He repeated it silently, an anchor against doubt. The transport rumbled, engines shifting as it entered jump orbit. Beyond the viewport, stars stretched into white threads. Elias closed his eyes. He had learned to rest whenever he could. In the field, rest was rare. The council chamber lingered in his thoughts. HFY had not been wrong, not entirely. Humans fought differently. Where others clung to ritualized combat, humans adapted. They struck from angles no doctrine accounted for, made tools from scarcity, turned every weakness into a weapon. That adaptability had won them survival, but it had also earned them universal suspicion. Elias understood why the galaxy hated snipers. A sniper meant uncertainty. It meant no distance was safe, no command post secure. It meant the rules could be broken by someone you never saw. And humans, more than any race he'd encountered, had embraced that role. He exhaled slowly. Tomorrow, the game would begin in earnest. On the docking platform, as Elias disembarked, a figure approached him, a tall Seleth with translucent skin and eyes like pools of ink. It inclined its narrow head. "They speak of you as Shadow," it said softly. "They fear you." Elias paused. "And you?" "I see necessity," the Seleth replied. "But necessity is never loved." The alien turned, vanishing into the crowd before Elias could respond. He tightened the strap of his rifle case and walked on. Far above, in the council chamber once more, HFY stood before his advisors. His mandibles clicked with satisfaction. "Tomorrow," he growled, "the galaxy votes. And if the humans attempt their dishonorable tricks, let them come. We have prepared the hunt." His eyes gleamed. He had baited his trap well. Elias, still unaware, moved silently toward the heart of it. Chapter end. The freighter's cargo bay stank of coolant and rust, its floor sticky with spilled lubricants. Elias crouched between stacked crates, the low hum of the ship's engines thrumming through metal walls. Beyond the sealed hatch, Dralathite patrol officers barked orders as they boarded, their boots striking with martial precision. He steadied his breath. Humans adapted to close quarters better than most. No need for biosensors or psychic scans when patience could make you invisible. He pressed flat against the bulkhead, watching shadows through the narrow seam of the hatch. A Dralathite voice rasped. "Check every compartment. Humans travel like vermin." The patrol entered. Their clawed feet clicked against the deck, taloned hands running over crate edges. One soldier paused inches from Elias's hiding place, nostrils flaring. Elias slid his finger to the knife sheath at his thigh, silent, ready. But the officer grunted and moved on. The inspection ended with curt orders, and the patrol departed. The hiss of the outer hatch sealed, followed by silence. Elias eased back into motion. He'd survived the first sweep, but the Dominion would tighten its net. The warlord knew humans favored stealth. Every checkpoint from here to the stronghold would be sharpened for his kind. The freighter docked at the Dralathite border city of Juroth. The skyline glittered with towers of blackened stone, each crowned with spires that resembled claws reaching at the sky. Elias slipped into the flow of travelers, traders, soldiers, pilgrims. He wore drab clothing scavenged from the freighter, his rifle sealed in a case marked as agricultural equipment. The streets smelled of iron and smoke. Dralathite culture glorified visible strength. Warriors paraded openly with blade axes and shock pikes, their duels breaking out in alleys and squares. Elias moved among them unseen, his quiet stride at odds with the thunder of their rituals. At a food stall, a smuggler contact waited. The alien was wiry, with a thin mane of metallic feathers. His sharp beak clicked when he saw Elias. "You carry death in that case," the smuggler muttered in trade common. "Just tools," Elias replied. The smuggler laughed dryly. "The galaxy hates your kind because you strip war of its theater. No songs, no ceremony, only silence, and then a corpse." "Silence wins wars," Elias said. "Perhaps. But silence makes enemies fear you more than they'll ever respect you." The smuggler handed him a data wafer, building layouts of the Dominion stronghold. "Payment is your survival. Don't make me regret it. Elias pocketed the wafer and walked on. Night fell. He scaled the outer wall of an abandoned observatory, its stone cracked, its domes shattered. From its roof he unfolded a collapsible tripod and set his rifle into position. Through the scope, the Dominion stronghold loomed, a fortress of black steel, banners snapping in the wind, guarded by armored legions. He adjusted dials, calibrating for wind shear and atmospheric density. At this range, he could place a bullet inside a coin. But he didn't fire. Not yet. He studied patrol routes, guard rotations, possible extraction paths. Every detail mattered. A sniper didn't simply pull the trigger, he built the world around it until there was no chance of failure. A ripple of unease touched him. Instinct, honed from years of waiting in the dark. He shifted his scope away from the stronghold, sweeping rooftops and ridgelines. A faint glimmer. Movement where none should be. His heartbeat slowed, not quickened. He shifted position, drawing back from the edge. Whoever watched him had patience equal to his own. A whisper drifted across the roof, too close. You think shadows belong only to humans? Elias spun, rifle low. A figure stood across the roofline, a Dralathai, cloaked in refractive mesh. Its weapon was crude compared to his rifle, but the posture was unmistakable. A counter-sniper. You hunt me, Elias said evenly. The Dralathai's mandibles twitched in a smile. You are prey. The warlord knew you would come. Now we watch you as you watch him. They circled each other, silent but for the wind. The alien raised its weapon slowly, savoring the moment. Elias didn't flinch. He let his rifle hang loosely at his side, posture calm. You think patience is your strength. But patience is only a tool. Adaptation is the weapon. The Dralathai hesitated, eyes narrowing. In that heartbeat, Elias lunged, not backward but forward. His knife flashed, driving under the alien's arm plates before the weapon could fire. The counter-sniper staggered, mandibles clattering in disbelief. Honor is predictable, Elias whispered as the body slid to the rooftop. Survival isn't. He pulled the corpse into shadow, stripping its mesh for later use. Already, he knew more would come. HFY had laid his trap well. Hours later, Elias sat in silence, his rifle balanced across his knees. The city below pulsed with torches and marching drums, the Dominion gathering for the warlord's rally. He checked his scope one final time, the reticle glowing faintly. Inside, the old weight pressed on him, the faces of those he'd ended, the truth of what his next bullet would mean. Humanity's place in the galaxy balanced on his trigger finger. The chrono ticked past midnight. His target would soon stand on the stronghold's balcony. Elias leaned into the rifle, breath slowing. The hunt was no longer beginning. It was already in motion. Chapter end. The night air of Koresh Prime shimmered with faint haze from luminescent spires, their glow painting the city in shifting hues of violet and silver. Traffic drones hummed above avenues crowded with off-worlders, traders, and soldiers. Elias Mercer moved among them like a shadow, civilian garb, hood drawn low, rifle broken down into innocuous compartments inside a weathered pack. He walked with the deliberate pace of a man who belonged, even as his eyes traced every line of sight, every balcony, every place where someone could wait unseen. The city was alive with rumor. The council's vote was only hours away, and the Dralathai Dominion had flooded Koresh with propaganda. Holoscreens blared HFY's speeches, looping images of fallen commanders and ruined battlefields. Each message hammered the same point: humans are assassins. They bring chaos wherever they step. Elias paused at a corner where a street vendor shouted over the din, waving skewers of charred meat. He bought one without breaking stride, chewing mechanically, more for disguise than hunger. His mind remained fixed on the task. The insertion coordinates had placed him here, 3 districts from the council's chamber, close enough for a clean angle if he could reach the right vantage. At a transit hub, his wrist comm vibrated twice. A signal. He drifted into a shadowed alcove, raising a concealed receiver. A scrambled voice emerged. Watcher to Raven. Dominion patrols increased perimeter sweeps. Adjust approach. Elias replied in a whisper. Raven copies. Alternate entry? Static crackled before the voice returned. Service conduits beneath the archives. Narrow, but clear. Coordinates incoming. Move fast, crowds are shifting. He slipped the comm back into his sleeve and melted into the flow of bodies. Above, banners of the Dominion rippled, massive sigils of claws crushing spheres. The imagery was unsubtle, but effective. He caught the wary glances of locals at his human features, saw the way they edged aside. Fear traveled faster than truth. The archives loomed ahead, a fortress of pale stone and alloy, guarded by pairs of Dralathai soldiers in segmented armor. Elias circled until he found the maintenance access, a rust-stained grate half hidden behind refuse bins. One glance for patrols, then he crouched, slipped tools from his sleeve, and levered the grate free. The smell of damp circuitry and stagnant air rushed out. He descended without hesitation, boots landing in ankle-deep water. The conduit stretched in darkness, cables tangled along walls, drops of condensation plinking from above. His light was a muted red beam, barely enough to illuminate the way but leaving shadows intact. Every step echoed. He adjusted his gait, rolling each footfall, letting silence settle again. Minutes stretched. Then, movement ahead. Elias stilled, breath shallow. A faint glow pulsed, not mechanical but organic. He pressed to the wall, rifle half assembled in seconds. The glow rounded a bend. A Selith, tall and translucent, the same species he'd encountered before. It regarded him with unreadable eyes. You walk the paths beneath their notice, it murmured. Elias kept his weapon low. Why are you here? To see if Shadow fulfills its promise. I don't need witnesses. Perhaps not. But the galaxy does. The Selith stepped aside, vanishing into mist as though never there. Elias moved on, unsettled but resolute. The conduit ended beneath a grated platform that opened into the council's district. He emerged into a plaza buzzing with anticipation. Delegates' shuttles lined the perimeter, their escorts keeping crowds at bay. From here, the chamber's spire rose like a blade into the sky, its windows aglow. He scanned quickly. Too many soldiers at ground level. Too much risk of exposure. The shot had to be taken from above. His gaze fixed on an unfinished tower across the plaza, scaffolding still clinging to its sides, height perfect for line of sight. He crossed the plaza with practiced casualness, slipping between knots of demonstrators. Their chants rolled across the square. Exile them! And no humans in the council! Elias ignored the words, focused only on rhythm and movement. He reached the tower's base, ducked through a gap in the fencing, and began the climb. The scaffolding creaked under his weight, but he ascended quickly, muscles moving with conditioned efficiency. Wind whipped higher up, tugging at his hood. At the 33rd floor, he found an exposed beam, stable enough for his position. He assembled the rifle in silence, piece by piece, until it rested complete in his hands. Through the scope, the chamber windows resolved into clarity. Inside, HFY can pace the dais, mandibles spread in commanding fervor. Delegates leaned forward rapt. The warlord's voice did not carry to Elias, but his body language spoke volumes: control, dominance, certainty. Elias adjusted the scope, breath slowing. Crosshairs aligned. One squeeze, and the galaxy's balance would shift. Then motion. Subtle, but wrong. Along the rooflines opposite, faint shimmered distortions, cloaked sentries. They knew. He withdrew fractionally, heart rate steady despite the revelation. The trap was set, as HFY had promised. A voice crackled softly in his calm. Raven, abort! It's a net. Too many eyes. Elias kept his gaze locked through the scope. Negative. If he speaks tomorrow, humanity is finished. Then you won't leave alive. Understood. He steadied, timing breaths with wind gusts. HFY turned, raising arms to punctuate his words. Elias tightened his finger. A sudden flash erupted from a rooftop opposite. A beam shot past his perch, scorching the scaffolding. Sniper counterfire. He rolled instinctively, rifle clutched tight, and the beam sheared through where his head had been. More shots followed. The trap had teeth. Elias dropped low, crawling along beams as debris rained down. He snapped his rifle into position, firing once. His bullet tore through distortion, and a Dralathai sniper collapsed, cloak failing. The others scattered, revealing themselves in streaks of energy fire. He used the chaos, darting along the edge of the tower until he found a narrow gap in their sight lines. Back to scope, XY still alive, still speaking, feeding the fury of the chamber. Elias exhaled, muscles tightening into absolute stillness. The crosshairs steadied. He fired. Glass shattered. The chamber erupted. XY jerked back, roaring, one arm shredded by the round. Not dead. Wounded but alive. Guards swarmed him instantly, pulling him from sight. Elias moved before the echoes faded, breaking down his rifle as he ran along the scaffolding. Beams lanced past him, searing metal, but he slipped into shadow, dropping levels with reckless speed. His landing jarred knees but held. He vanished into the press of the plaza before soldiers could close. Above, alarms blared. The warlord had survived, and the trap was sprung wide. Humanity's future now balanced on the chaos he had unleashed. Chapter end.